Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So, Boris Johnson's Get Back to Work campaign seems to have stalled somewhat this week and also resulted in a few contradictory messages coming out of Downing Street. So, what's been going on? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as Parliament returned this week, Boris Johnson was coming under pressure to get office workers back into the office. Now, this isn't about getting furloughed workers back into work, nor even admin-based workers who were struggling to manage on their work, at home because, they have generally had the option of going back to the office. But quite a lot of office-based workers have been able to set up to do their work from home perfectly well and safely. If anything, efficiency is greater for those who can do that and work at home because they avoid the lengthy commute in each direction as well. And many managers have also seen the benefits in terms of reduced costs and increased productivity. And indeed, a great many businesses have started to talk about a new way of doing things. This isn't something that they're necessarily looking at for now, but for the long term. And, well, for those who haven't already been seeing increased productivity, like I said, those have been returning anyway where it's made sense to do that. So when we had the campaign to get people back into the office because it was hurting a particular chain shop that sells sandwiches and coffee, people weren't all that impressed. Then we had the Brexit Party chairman, Richard Tice. Now, he was saying it was unpatriotic not to go back into the office. I'm quite sure this has got nothing to do at all with the fact that he generates his wealth from renting office space. But employers weren't buying it, managers weren't buying it. And I don't just mean the intelligent ones who didn't see the sense in getting people to return to the office unnecessarily. But others as well, even if they would like to, because they know that full well, if they try cramming people back into the office and then one of their workers becomes seriously ill or even dies as a result, then they're going to be in all sorts of legal trouble. Now, saying that they were just doing what they did because of our lunatic Prime Minister wanted his workers to buy a few more sandwiches is not going to wash in court. So Boris Johnson then tried another tactic. Consensus bias. So he started off the week by saying that workers were returning to offices in huge numbers, basically trying to get people to believe, oh, everyone else is doing it, I'm going to be in the minority here, I'd better go along with the herd. So then a number of journalists went, hang on a minute, we're not really seeing this. So they asked Number 10 to share the data with which they were basing this proud claim. No, we're not quite ready to share this information yet because reasons. Then as the week unfolded, someone thought to try something else. So they asked Number 10, so what's happened to the government's Back to Work campaign then? Because the ad campaign doesn't seem to have come out yet. Has there been a delay? We haven't seen it. To which a spokesperson for the Prime Minister, unnamed of course, which means probably Dominic Cummings, said that there had never been a Back to Work campaign. That's odd, the journalist thought. That's odd, because the Prime Minister was talking about it, and also we know that there have been plans for a major social media campaign soon as well. I mean, that's already been announced. What do you mean there's never been a campaign? So why would you plan a major social media campaign for a campaign that never existed? Then a few things became clear. So an article in the Telegraph suggested that the campaign did exist, but that it had been postponed because the government realised, a little bit embarrassingly you would think, that this campaign runs against its own social distancing guidelines. Because bear in mind, if you imagine a particular office space which so many people occupied before COVID. Well, now with the social distancing guidelines, you'd be able to get far fewer people in that office. Now, the government want lots of people to return because their issue is, several issues, but the issue they keep banging on about are all the other businesses that are grouped around office complexes, sandwich shops, coffee shops, that sort of thing. And they're concerned that people aren't buying enough in there. Now, even if you had every single office, because there'll be some offices that are still empty, because those employees are not bothering to get anyone to return, because why would you if they can do their work safely at home? I mean, if they can't, different matter, but if they can, well... So, but even if you got the maximum number of people back to the offices for which you could manage with social distancing, that's still way fewer cups of coffee and sandwiches being bought. Now, apparently, the issue that caused the government to postpone this was highlighted by someone at the Bank of England, who pointed out that the proposed benefits of returning to the office that the government are trying to push, because they tried pushing the idea that you need to go to the office to buy sandwiches, and then people went, I can make sandwiches at home, and then the government, oh yeah, right, okay, right, yeah, so you need to go back to the office because it'll make you more efficient, more collaboration, more creativity. Now, I could say I can argue against every single one of those points, but never mind that for now. What the chap at the Bank of England pointed out is that these aims could not possibly be met with social distancing rules, because this hive of activity, this mass collaboration, can't exist with just a small number of people in the office. Whereas in actual fact, it's quite easy to point out it can exist much more easily if everyone is in their own safe space and they're just doing it via Google Meet, Zoom, Teams, whatever software you use. And this article in Telegraph also reported that the Cabinet Office suggested that before you start pushing people in the country in general to get back to the office, they probably needed more of their own people, civil servants, to be at their desks as well. Presumably they said as much. They don't want to be seen as hypocritical. I think their term was, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And the Cabinet Office have been pushing government departments. They've been asking them, well, why aren't more? How many people are back at their desks, and why aren't more? And what are you doing to get more there? So they're actually trying to push for civil servants to get back to the office. Obviously, there's no such concern for hypocrisy amongst government ministers. So we had Grant Shapps, for example, the Transport Secretary, who's engaged in a couple of little bouts of hypocrisy this week that have made him squirm a little bit. He registered his private plane. He's a keen pilot. He has a private plane, and he registered that with US authorities because it's less stringent than the British version. Now, that would be a bad look, you would think, for any government minister, because you're not supporting a government department, but Grant Shapps, like I said, is the Transport Secretary. So the rules that he thinks too stringent to use for himself are made by him. It's his department. But the second and more relevant for this bit of hypocrisy was he conducted an interview earlier in the week where he said it was absolutely safe to return to the office and people should do this as part of this drive, this campaign that apparently never existed. Now, this interview, did he conduct it, in a studio? No, there's no need for that. Did he conduct it remotely from his office? No. He did it from home. So there he is, working from home, telling people in the country that it's silly to work from home. You need to get back to the office. Thanks for that, Mr. Shapps. Way to lead by example there. And as I discussed last week, the timing of this, of course, is due to return to, for kids to return to school. The government couldn't really push for a large-scale return to the office before, because that would have meant taking your kids in with you, because childcare is very sporadic. Generally is at the best of times, but certainly at the moment, there's very little childcare available. And with the reopening of schools, though, wealthy businessmen who own office blocks and coffee shops, caring citizens concerned about the well-being of workers, wanted to see a mass return to office complexes. But it hasn't happened. So some of the stats that would sort of suggest how many have, looking at public transport for those that would use that. So train use was at 31% of pre-COVID levels at the end of last week. Start of this week, it was up to 38%. So on the day schools opened, or most schools opened. Tube use in London went up 2.2% and bus use went up 8%. So it's gone up. There's clearly been a move back for those for whom childcare was probably the issue, but not a large number. Now, presumably, this extra number of people who have gone back to the office would be accounted for by workers who didn't want to work at home or struggled in some other way, and have now chosen to go back in, or the small number of managers who are brainless and forcing their workers back regardless. And I mean, I know my partner's work, just as an example, have said that you should only return to the office if you cannot do it from home, if there's some reason you feel you can't do it at home. And I know some of her colleagues have done that. Some of them, it's because they haven't really got a suitable space at home to do it with. You can't be sat on a dining chair for any length of time. That's not good. And some of them just wanted to get back into the office, and that's fine. They've been allowed to do that as long as distancing is maintained. But what they've basically said is, to people who can safely work at home and they're willing to do that and they're able to do that, that is how it's going to be. And as far as I can tell, that seems to be how it's going to be potentially long term. They haven't made a firm decision, but they're very much thinking about it. But apparently, there are also government advisors. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Boris Johnson to get people back to the offices. But there are also government advisors who are also suggesting, well, should we wait to see what happens with the R value as a result of reopening schools? Because it won't be a good look for the government if we end up with the second wave. Matt Hancock was this week talking about how the fact is it's broadly level at the moment, the number of cases. It's not, but nor is it shooting up either. It is going up, but it's not shooting up. And crucially, the number of deaths is level. They really don't want to be throwing that out of whack. But again, you would think at some point the push will have to come, because the Conservatives are not keen on looking at another way of handling the economy. There's an awful lot of people in this country are looking at the situation and saying, right, we need to reevaluate the way our economy works. We need a better way of working, a more modern way of working. This has given us the impetus to have that discussion. Government are not at all interested in that discussion. Conservatives are not at all interested in that discussion. They are making out like bandits with the current capitalist model and are not terribly keen on moving away from it. But it seems that, as I say, that there's arguments in Whitehall and Downing Street about when the push should come and how hard it should be. Because if the R value does increase significantly with schools reopening, well, what then? Because then there's going to be another political squeeze on Boris Johnson. On the one hand, under such circumstances, he will not be able to pressure people into travelling unnecessarily and cramming themselves into the close confines of a poorly ventilated office. On the other hand, many of those around him will be losing money, and, they'll be seeing their precious capitalism being exposed as unfit for purpose by the public. But not to worry, I hear Boris Johnson is really good at dealing with complex problems. Sure, it will be fine. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.